Well, the new year has started and there's a full entry for Kenyans in various sectors. KTN's Edith Kimani brings us the details.
With the coming of the new year, the country once more looks at a fresh entry. From politics to business and even sports, here are some key occurrences that you should expect in 2015. Well, the political arena will open with a battle in Homa Bay on February 12th, where residents will decide who their new senator will be. Now, political pundits are already calling the by-election a two-horse race, with ODM aspirant Moses Kajwang expected to go neck to neck against recent ODM defector Silas Jakakimba, who is now, of course, of the United Democratic Movement. The Homa Bay seat fell vacant after its previous holder, Otieno Kajwang, passed away on November 18th, 2014. But it's not just Homa Bay. Kajiado Central constituents will also be heading to the polls to elect a new member of parliament. And of course, this is after the former member of parliament, Joseph Mkaiseri, was appointed to be the cabinet secretary in charge of interior. So that's in politics. We're looking at a different political arena and the possibility of a referendum. And that possibility that the country could prepare for a referendum is still very evident after governors push for more funds in the counties. Now, governors say that the only way 40% of the national revenue will be allocated to counties is through a constitutional amendment. The Coalition for Democracy and Reforms has said it has also collected signatures to go to a referendum to Okoa Kenya, or Save Kenya if you like, from a myriad of issues. Now, these signatures, however, have to be submitted to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission for verification before the referendum bill can be taken to the counties. Half of the 47 county governments will then have to support the bill for referendum, after which the bill proceeds to Parliament for debate. So we're still very much at the beginning of that process, and the referendum could go either way for both CORD and, of course, the governors, and we'll have to wait and see what 2015 has in store for them. And then we're looking at the education sector, and Professor Jacob Kaimenyi will inevitably and most likely have an eventful January. And of course, this is after the Kenya National Union of Teachers threatened to go on strike when schools reopen. So what does this mean? It means that if teachers make good their threat, January 5th could be the beginning of yet another showdown between teachers and government. Teachers want government to implement a return to work formula signed in July of 2013. Kaimenyi, on the other hand, has maintained that there are better ways to negotiate. And on top of the impending strike, he's also under pressure from the Parents Association to reduce school fees in secondary schools. So how will Kaimenyi handle this? Well, we'll know in a couple of days. And from the education sector, we look at issues of development. And in Development News 2015, this is a year that the standard gauge railway construction is set to finally begin. The Kenyan government has been waiting for funding for the project from the Chinese government. So what Kenya needed to do was really meet a set of prerequisites before the monies could be released. And on the week before Christmas, the government announced that the money was finally in their hands. The exact groundbreaking date is unknown, but the project is expected to kick off in the first quarter of 2015. And we're still looking at development news, but this time specifically on investment. And as you can already guess, we're looking at the capital gains tax, which is set to come into effect from 1st January. This basically means that from the beginning of 2015, government will take 5% of the net profit realized from real estate transactions and the capital markets. The capital gains tax had been suspended since 1985 because government wanted to spur interest in the country's capital markets and real estate markets, which at the time were really quite sleepy. But the tax is now making a return. Why? Because the real estate and capital markets have been top performers, outstripping economic growth for the last 10 years. And then there's also the issue of needing to harmonize Kenya's tax laws with those of the rest of the East African community countries. Currently, Tanzania charges 20% capital gain tax, while Uganda charges 30%. By not having a capital gains tax, Kenya risked being accused of attempting to use its lower tax to lure investors to the region. Players in the capital markets and the property sectors have warned that the introduction of the tax could dampen investments in the two sectors, but the government insists that this tax introduces equity in the tax system that so far has seemingly favored the rich. And then finally, we look at sports. All roads will be leading to Equatorial Guinea, and this is where the creme de la creme of the continent's football players will meet ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations. The AFCON games have been marred by controversy in 2014 after Morocco, who were intended hosts, pulled out of the game citing Ebola fears. Kenya will sadly once more take on a spectator's role after the national team, Harambee Stars, failed to qualify for the games. Now, their disappointing year comes against a backdrop of wrangles between Football Kenya Federation and the Kenya Premier League over an expanded 2015 league. Now, currently, the league has 16 teams, and debate is going on as to whether or not to include 2 more teams. The World Football Governing Body, FIFA, has already stepped in and said that the country can indeed have an expanded league. However, the financial implications have to be agreed on by the 2 warring parties, KPL and FKF, and this will again be determined in the year to come. So these are just some of the things to expect in 2015. Of course, there are others which will come up which we have no way of predicting, but these are some of the ones to look forward to in 2015. And so this is what we are gearing for in the coming year. I'm Edith Kimani. Happy New Year.